So yeah, motivation in tech. I mean, we all work in very different roles at the moment. Is there something that you're specifically struggling with right now since you decided to bring it up?
Yeah, well, I mean, not struggling. I have these like existential moments at times where I think about my life in the perspective of what I should be doing, what I should be focusing on, and why I feel certain ways about certain things. And I don't know if I'm just feeling feelings and I'm working backwards and justifying those feelings, or there's discovery to happen there. So I don't know. Basically, I find myself in a situation, and it reminds me of situations I've had in the past. And maybe I'll go back for an example. When I was just graduating college, I was in my head that I would go back and get at least a master's and maybe continue school. I really like school. I feel like I I feel like it fit me well at the time in my life, and it made sense. And then after a few years of being out in the real world, I think this happens for a lot of people. Um, I couldn't really stomach the idea of going back and like doing projects that weren't brass tacks doing things in the real world. So, for instance, like when I was in business school, we would write marketing plans. I remember I wrote like 160-page marketing plan with a group, and but it was for you know uh, a company in a market that doesn't exist, right? So we just like made this up, and we did research and we made this up. But I can't imagine spending the time writing a 60-page marketing plan for fake stuff when I could be doing that in the real world on like a real business and trying it. So my motivation in that regard changed. I'm finding the same thing in tech. So like, for instance, I think we've talked about this before. I've been moving my company from a client oriented service business to more of a product oriented business. But it's hard because I need to balance those two things to also have enough money for payroll so we can keep operating because client revenue is where we make all our money. And it's hard to find motivation sometimes to do both of those different things. I don't know if you guys have experienced that where like you're trying to either learn a new technology or a new skill, and like it's hard to balance some of the old stuff that you've been doing because I definitely struggling with that.
Um, I don't know, Brian, do you want to jump in on that or?
Um, so I don't have obviously our responsibilities and everything are much different, Jim. And you get to choose your own path in certain ways. Obviously, you're tied to certain things, but so my motivation isn't nearly as, you know, if I don't work my butt off on a certain day, then I'm not going to get the projects done that are eventually going to be going into your pocket. So it's a little different in the sense that, I wake up, I work, and if I have a bad day or week or whatever, then I'm still getting paid, and it's not that big of a deal. So my motivation is more sometimes like if I do a good job or if I don't, I still get money, which is really like a crappy way of thinking about work. Like it's not how um I would necessarily want to live my life, but sometimes that's how it is, especially whenever you have other things going on in your life that are hard to deal with or just are sometimes more taxing than work in itself. So that's where I get hung up and struggled or get have a lot of struggles with is whenever I have a lot going on in my life, um, finding the motivation to have a productive day at work. And I know I should use work as a tool to have a better, week or day or whatever. And because whenever I do have a great day or a great week or month or whatever, um, it definitely uplifts me in a way. Like I feel good about myself that I did a lot of work and I helped my team out and made a good product and all those things. So I guess sometimes my motivation failures are just um, showing up to work sometimes. As bad as that sounds.
No, I think that's.
Yeah,
I mean that's totally what I'm getting at. Oh, sorry, Jay. Do you want to say something?
well, I was gonna say though, I sort of fall like in between, I guess, because like so for example, I don't think that well, basically I'm stuck between two different places, right? That are completely polar opposite from each other. I sometimes when I wake up, I think, oh, I wish I had a job that just paid decent money that I could sort of, be comfortable in, coast along, blah, blah, blah. And just leave it like you work, sort of work to live, not live to work sort of mindset. But then other days, and it's not even necessarily like a day to day thing. It could be an hour by hour thing where, um, all of a sudden I'm like, no, fuck that. Like I want to be like really good in what I'm doing and like really valued by my company. So it's really hard because sometimes I bounce back like daily, hourly, weekly, monthly between those two mindsets. And because they're polar opposite, it's really hard to sort of one and just go for it because it really just depends on how I'm feeling in the moment. Um And honestly, Brian, you said you don't think that's like necessarily the best mindset like for work, but I honestly don't think that there's anything wrong with being like good at what you do. Like maybe I'm not talking about in like the top 5%, the top 10%. Like if you're above average, like and you make a decent amount of money, that's good enough. And sometimes for me, that sounds like an awesome idea. But then at other times I'm like, oh God, I'll see somebody that I work with that's like super smart, really capable of what they're doing, like 10 times better than I am. And I'm just like, oh, I wish I was that person. And then I get motivated for a brief period of time. But then I'm like, well, why
Mm,
am I putting in all this extra effort for when I could just be like out there living my life? So it's really a sort of a hard thing to balance.
yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm immune to kind of like the feelings that, Brian and Jay, you guys are articulating. Like, so for instance, like yes, I run my own company and it's a little closer to the deliverable to the client, I maybe in some ways, but I definitely suffer from like days where I just can't get the wheels turning. And then there'll be days where I'll work like crazy. And it's hard to figure out when that inspiration is gonna hit. And it's like really I do notice certain patterns, for instance. Like social media for me destroys me, and I have an addictive personality to social media. I got off a lot of apps. Like I got off Instagram a while back. I don't go on Instagram anymore. But like Twitter still gets me because I think I hold on to that in the hopes that basically there's some like tech insights I can learn there, and there's some community building I could use to like launch products or whatever. But it's kind of a lie because I don't actively make content for it. I consume it, and it just takes time. And I find that days where I'm spreading myself thin on non-related tasks, I lose like tons of motivation, and it definitely spirals into like a non-productive day, and I feel worse at the end of the day. Um, but no, I definitely feel like it's that's the development like life cycle is just to have ups and downs. You're not going to be productive every day. We even talk about this on my team internally. It's like some days it's just like you can't produce anything, and other days you can. It's because I think the job is hard, right? It's not like something that you can just show up and punch in, right? Punch in, punch out. So yeah, I don't know. For me, I guess the struggle I'm having right now is I'm in this spot where we kind of concluded two client projects. We have some maintenance stuff, and we're working on one product, and then when that's done, we might try another small product just to get a couple irons in the fire. Um, and I'm like at this point now where I know what we should be doing is securing some more service work to make sure that we have the payroll and just don't keep burning cash and keep working on these things. But I'm not motivated to do that. Like the idea of doing another client project makes me unhappy. Like, and I guess boohoo. Like that's work. No, everyone has to work, and it's not really fun all the time. But like, I don't know, man. I'm almost like, oh, let's just burn the cash and just focus on what we actually want to do because I feel like every time we divert our attention, we're like moving away from that slightly more, and we're giving that a less probability of success. So I don't know. I feel like very torn between those things, but I'm much more motivated to work on our internal products, than I am to go out and try to find new work and all the struggles that come along with that, and the stresses and the deadlines and all the things there. I mean, sometimes we're not even profitable on those. So it's yeah, I don't know. I guess right now I'm just like at this place where I know I should be doing some biz dev, and I just don't want to do it that much. I don't
I
know.
can I can absolutely understand why you wouldn't want to go, especially if you're just wrapped up to like, why would you want to dive back into that? I totally get that.
Yeah.
And for me, whenever um, it's for me, it's whenever I get a new story, I'm like, I dive right in and I'm happy and I work hard. And whenever it's just like a bunch of bugs that it's like I have no motivation whenever it comes to those type of things. So I know they're apples and oranges in terms of what we're talking about, but the motivation portion is, something that you want to do compared to something that you have to do type thing. And it is a hard mental struggle sometimes, especially whenever you have to do it and people are waiting on you and it's like you still can't get your mind to do it. It's like painful.
Yeah, some of the tasks that hold me up aren't even big ones. They're just like, can you scope out this task? And it's just like that will just like I know that why don't I just take 10 minutes and do it, But like I don't know, there's so many emotions and things that go along with that. It's kind of more loaded than that. And I feel like there's these little villagers in my brain that are just protesting. They're just like, we're not doing that.
I had
like, come on,
I
guys.
had a thing hang over my head for a month. And it was a bug that the customer was waiting for. And it was just, and I couldn't do it. And then I finally, last week, I reached out to someone, because I basically I was stuck at a point in the bug where I couldn't, kind of reproduce it or whatever. And, I finally reached out, asked them, and within half a day it was done and over with. But it was just like a constant cloud that was hanging over my head. And I just finally bit the bullet. So yeah, it can be hard.
So that was like you were struggling, or were you struggling to get the motivation to do it, or were you struggling to like actually understand it, or both?
The motivation, yeah. I mean, I could have easily done it if I had the motivation. It would have been done a month ago.
Yeah. So I guess like, do you like? So when I have this situation happen all the time. This is like a weekly occurrence that happens. I'm like trying to like discover what process is it, because it's easy to just like, I'm not motivated, but like there are steps and thoughts and whatever leading to that, right? Like do you try to unpack like, what is it that I hate about this? Is it like an emotional thing? Is it like I've done this a million times, it's not representative of my skills? Like have you tried to think about what that process is that got you to that feeling?
I have not, but it would be an interesting exercise. I have been trying to do other things outside of just like sitting at the computer and trying to force myself to do it, to find motivation to work on things that I don't want to. So like I'll work for 30 minutes and then I'll take a 10-minute break and go work on a little house project that I have. And if I feel so, for one, I'm getting away from staring at the screen, which if you stare at the screen for too long, your brain kind of gets so tired, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
so I do that, and then I also at the same flip side, you're going to do something productive if it's reading a book or if it's painting a door or whatever it is. And at the end of the day, you're doing something productive, but it's also helping you reset your mind so then I can also work better whenever I get back to my computer type thing. So I've been trying that. It's been helping a little bit, but that's one way I've been trying to. I haven't unpacked like you said, but that's one way I've been trying to help motivate myself more.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of the, so not to keep bringing it back to like,
Could I
social
just
media, but like have you heard of like sorry Jay, what?
Yeah, I just had something to sort of speak on about that
Yeah, please.
before we move on. So basically, I like listening to Jocko Willink when he sort of talks about like getting stuff done, and like motivation isn't the thing that we should really be relying on. It's discipline, you know what I mean? And I know we touched base on that in the last episode with Grace. Um, but yeah, like if you have to rely on motivation to actually like get stuff done, like that's not the proper way to be actually going about it. Um, because if you wait for motivation, sometimes you won't get to the point that you actually get the thing done that needs to be done. So, it's all about just like ignoring. Like, sounds healthy, but it's not really to be productive. It really is all about like ignoring your feelings and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
just to sort of bring this back to what Brian was saying about what he was just working with, like there was this one bug that he didn't want to deal with. Um, he didn't want to work on it, and then all of a sudden he gets it done in half a day, right? So I started a new job recently. Same thing. There was a ticket that I came in from a client that I really didn't want to work on, and I was putting it off and putting it off, and just working on other stuff. And like I realized like the thing that was preventing me to do it wasn't motivation. It was actually like it was more along the lines of being worried about not being able to solve it. Um, which is weird, right?
Like
Because
a
it's not gonna get
insecurity of some
eh,
sort.
yeah, so
Hmm.
the weird thing is, like, it's not gonna get solved if you don't work on it, right? So then, like, you end
Yeah.
up getting into this, like, loop, right? Where you you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna work on something else for a bit before I address this," and then you, um, you start thinking about this other thing, and it makes you even more worried about it, so you're even more or less likely to try to put it off because you're even more worried about it than it was before, and that worry was the thing that was actually preventing you from starting it in the first place. So, the longer you put it off, the more you worry about it, the more you worry about it, the longer you wanna put it off. So,
Yep.
that's been my experience with that anyway.
I wonder if so. I mean, I think like those negative feelings. So let's just say feeling stupid, for instance, right? They have like a painful impact in your brain, right? I think there's some chemical response that elicits some pain. So that is you trying to avoid a pain of some sort. And it's weird to think of it that way because it's not like no one you're not in a room, no one's like laughing at you. Like it's not external. It's all in here, but like you're avoiding something very uncomfortable. Um,
Yeah, right. For me,
that's
like
really interesting.
one of my like biggest worries whenever especially whenever I start a new job is like people thinking that I'm an idiot, right? So like
Sure.
I'll I'll be afraid to work on a task because I think that I'm going to end up needing to ask somebody a question about the task because I can't figure it out myself. And then basically just being worried about like looking like an idiot prevents me from actually even starting on the task. And something I realized lately is that, as bad as this sounds, I'd rather people think I'm lazy and not doing the work that I'm supposed to be, as opposed to looking like a moron.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's a deep
it's a,
rooted thing, I think,
yeah,
Jay.
yeah. It's a hard thing for me to push past. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, you have an identity of being smart, right? Like so that's threatening your identity of some sort. To me as your therapist, that's what it seems like.
I well, actually, I would disagree with that because I don't necessarily think I'm like above average as far as like intelligence goes. It's just
Mm.
I okay, it's gonna sound really bad, but like I look at a lot of people and I think, wow, they're an idiot, right? It's just like I don't want people. It comes from purely it's all internal, right? Because I do a lot of judging like on my end. I think people
Mm.
probably do the same on their end, and I don't want people doing the same thing to me that I do to them. Yeah,
See,
so it's a weird thing.
there's a truth in that. My wife and I we talk about this. So sometimes like when we have a negative feeling towards someone, a jealousy or like a judgment on them, it is because we either see that. Okay, have you ever seen someone like a terrible trait, like that person's like really selfish or greedy or whatever, and like it really rubs you like the wrong way, like more than it should. Oftentimes, what I've found through observation, like it's something I see within myself that I dislike, and so I'm projecting how much I hate it onto them, right? So like these things are definitely they can get wrapped up in a lot of interesting ways. I want to go back to the thing you said about discipline, Jay. I totally agree with that. Like I definitely subscribe to discipline can trump motivation. The thing that I've been wondering recently is this next layer deeper of this idea that like of being out of alignment, right? So like okay, for instance, client work for me, right? I've been doing this for well, I've been doing it for more than a decade if you count the work I was doing before I started my company. Um, and like I like client work in a lot of ways, but then doing the same type of websites over and over again in technologies that I've kind of fallen out of favor with starts becoming this like stressful thing that like that I really don't like like on a lot of levels. And like I worry that yes, I can build some discipline and I have one thing that I want to talk about after that's about like one of those disciplinary things, but like I worry that long-term effects of being out of alignment lead to like burnout and all sorts of like other terrible things, right? So it's just like, oh, I'll just be like I'll sleep really well and I'll get off social media and I'll do all these things and like I will do this, but like inside it's just like I feel out of alignment with what that is, and I feel, maybe I need a bigger change, and I worry that like sometimes discipline can mask like a deeper like you know problem that needs to, like a life change. You know what I mean? Um, one way that I want to kind of like approach discipline, and what I've been trying to do is, and this is maybe a bad time, but like, okay, have you heard of dopamine detoxing? It's basically like getting stimulus out. So it's cutting out social media or whatever, it could be anything, right? And it helps me. Like I definitely can dive into problems more when I cut that stuff out. And my goal is basically making my life so boring that work by comparison seems like okay. Like solving these problems, like it's like, oh, that's kind of interesting because it's better than staring at a wall. And it actually works, but I don't know. I guess it's a balance. Like I
So
think everything in life is like a spectrum.
I'm picturing you just like you sign out of work and you just sit there and stare at a wall. Is that what's
Yeah,
happening?
basically, yeah. No, I mean,
Stephanie
I'm not
must
good
love
at it.
this.
Yeah, I'm not good at it, but something like because I love like constant stimulus of all like what like eating chocolate or looking at Twitter or whatever it is, like something always to like stimulate. But I do find if I try to withhold some of that stuff, then it becomes easier to do this. And it's weird. I feel like life is this like weird spectrum, right? It's like it's why the rich fall hard, right? Like, if you have a really awesome life and then you lose it, like it seems really terrible, even though your life would be a normal middle class, like fine life. But I think you're always comparing yourself. You're doing like these little comparisons to where you are. And so I feel like doing those type of things makes it so your comparisons are they're a little better with work. I don't know. I don't know if it's a sustainable thing either. You know what I mean? Just making your life kind of suck.
It's interesting. I think I'll have to try that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just stop doing everything that I enjoy in life, and then maybe I'll start looking forward to.
I just think overstimulate, and maybe you don't do this, but I tend to like overstimulate my brain to the point where like it's like I can't even focus. Right? It feels like ADHD. It's like I'll be like listen to a podcast, like scrolling Twitter at the same. Have you ever done that? Like if you're in a bad spot if you're doing that, right? Like you're literally
Oh,
listening to like
yeah.
a YouTube and doing another social media. It's absolutely insane.
I'll put like fucking Seinfeld on Netflix for the 1,000th time that I've watched all these
Yeah.
episodes, and the episodes will literally be playing. And this is usually like, say, Ellie's out with friends or seeing her family or whatever, and I'm home alone, and I'll literally put on something that I know I don't have to pay attention to, just so there's something on, and I'll literally be there like scrolling Reddit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. I mean, everyone has that. That happened to them every once in a while. But I think like if you're finding yourself doing that a lot, you're probably overstimulated. And I know when I cut some of that out, it becomes easier to be motivated on certain things.
Yeah,
But
it's interesting.
yeah,
Um, we're touching base on the discipline part of it again. It's so interesting to me, at least. I know you guys aren't an insane person like I am, but I tend to lack discipline on things that um require brain power, but on something
mhm.
that just requires like manual effort, it's super easy for me to push through. And I know I've mentioned this before, but like I'm one of those people that gets up during the in the morning at 4 a.m. To go to the gym every day. Well, an example of this, right? Like I drank on Friday night this last week. I was a little hungover Saturday morning. Um, it was only like 42 degrees outside. I have to walk to the gym. It was pouring rain, so it was like cold. It's a 15-minute walk to the gym. And I woke up hungover, and it wasn't even like a question that I asked myself at 5 o'clock in the morning, like, oh, am I going to go to the gym? It's like, nope, gym time to go. And it's just like
Yep.
so interesting to me that like that's a really hard thing to do in that scenario for like a lot of people. But a lot of people also don't have problems with just like getting up and going to work every day, which is something that I struggle with. There's just like I've been trying to sort of like integrate that sort of same sort of like mindset to work. Um,
Mhm.
and it's just been so difficult. And I don't know why like the physical stuff is so easy when the mental stuff is so hard.
I've been feeling something similar. Oh, go ahead, Brian. You want to say
No,
something?
no, no. I don't have any insights on that, but I'm not surprised that um whenever it comes to manual things that you can just push through. Because that is a lifting mindset, is like getting through each individual rep. And you've been doing it for so long now that it's not, that statement to me is not a surprise coming from you at all.
Yeah, I've been having very similar feelings yet. And again, like you're definitely way more disciplined physically than I am, but I've been working out more recently, and I've also been I've been doing this like side project basically where I'm building my own templating engine, and it's like using a lot of theory that I had never implemented before, like parsing and lectures and parsers and that kind of thing. So it's different. And it's challenging, and I keep like getting to the like I'll sit and I'll stare at it. I'm just like I'm like trying to flex my brain. I'm like just like be smarter and like do it. And it's like I feel like I almost physically mentally can't, like not even motivation. I just like I can't like get my brain to like do the rep. You know what I mean? But then I'll go and I'll just like I'll like run a 5K or I'll do whatever, and I can like do that, and I feel way more motivated to do that. And I had the same thought recently. I was like, I wish I could push my brain to like solve this problem the same way. And maybe I don't know, maybe the problem's harder, but I wish I could do the same way that I could just like force myself to run, or do a couple reps on the bench or whatever. But yeah, it seems like it's hard. It feels very similar but different. I don't know. I think there's just more cobwebs wrapped up in it, right? Because it's like the rep on the bench is like, okay, you put the weights on, you can do it or you can't. It's like you just but mentally it's like, am I going the right direction? Am I spinning? Am I too tired? Like there's all these like things spinning for me at least, and there's other things getting in the way. I had this weird experience. I don't know if you guys have had to. I've had it several times where I get completely exhausted and overtired, and I have my best coding there, and I can't even. It feels like somebody else is doing it. Like I can't even explain the logic. Like I'll be like layers deep in this logic, and I literally don't even know what it is. I feel like I'm like almost like sleep typing, and like I can write for like 45 minutes without a save, and then save without having a bug happen. Like I've had this happen so many times now. It's the craziest experience. It seriously feels like somebody else is writing the code. And like if you ask me like what are you writing, I'd be like I don't know. I don't know. It's just like going. Have you guys ever had that experience?
Well, I guess not to the same like level, because in the past I haven't really done much coding experience. But as far as like being able to be better at the things that I'm doing, yes, I think that's happened before. And maybe it's just your brain is too tired to like focus on your feelings, so you focus on like you literally only focus on the thing that you're
Yes.
supposed to be doing as opposed to how you're feeling.
Yeah. That is exactly the conclusion I've come to. So I really think it's like the cobwebs of my emotions are blocking my ability to do my job well in certain ways. And when I'm so exhausted that it's like one process is going, it cuts out, oh, could I be doing something else? Am I stupid? Am I like all these things that are blocking me? They're just like I don't have the capacity for it. And I focus on the one thread. And I'm probably doing that one thread worse than I would normally, but it has no distraction, so it actually comes out better. That's the conclusion I've come to, Jay. So that's funny that you thought the same thing. Um, but yeah, it's the weirdest. It sounds like I'm lying, honestly. Like that sounds so crazy, but like I've had this happen like a dozen times now. It's wild.
I've noticed that if I'm up late, like I have a priority event or some big thing deadline that I have to meet, all those type of things. I get in some sort of tramp state, but definitely not I can't tell you what I'm doing type thing.
I mean, I could probably tell you what I'm doing, but not like at a deep I'm so tired that I've forgotten why I'm implementing the thing that I'm implementing.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like it's like I'm like deep in the I'm like I know I have to do this and I know this thing has to output that, but I don't know why. So I can explain on some level, but I lose the full context. It's like I have an overflow of the stack that I'm trying to it's just like I can keep track of this much.
I have a lot of you both have motivation for physical stuff, and I don't know. I'd blame it on kids. Who knows if it's actually kids? But I have the opposite, where you guys have, like in college, I was pretty good in shape, but since then
Yeah,
I've
I was
just
gonna say
like
you were like the original weightlifter in this group.
Yeah, the hunky too.
But well, now it hasn't happened in a very long time, and I wish I could have some sort of motivation like you guys do with that. So I wish I could almost trick my brain opposite of the way that it works, where I know I have a lot of either mental things that I got to do today, or mentally deal with problems at home with kids, or juggling schedules, all those type of things. And I wish I could flip it and send us a lot of that motivation to doing something physical, because I know that having doing a lot of working out is motivate you to do other things, kind of like what I'm doing with projects at home or whatever. If I spend, that 10-minute break that I'm doing lifting, I'm sure I'd feel just as good compared to that. I would rather pick up a paintbrush and paint a door than
Yeah.
lift some weight.
Hey,
But I get that.
I think I mean, I could be completely off here, right? But say like the way you address, uh, say like a project at home, right? Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna paint or something like that, right? That's something that doesn't have like a definite time frame for you, right? You're like, oh, well, I've got some free time. I'm gonna go do this, right? And it doesn't matter if you only spend 5 minutes on it or if you end up spending 2 hours on it, right? So I think the big block that stops people from actually doing things, they build up this giant wall of like the thought of how much effort this thing is going to take, rather than just be like, oh, I'm going to start, and
Mhm.
like not focus on like how much time it's going to take or how hard it's going to be, because like I know personally for me, I found that if there's something that I really don't want to do, like say I had to study for the last like 5 years and stuff like that in my career on weekends and after work and stuff like that. And I found that if I'm okay, I like it's impossible for me to have the motivation to do this right now. I'm gonna open my laptop, turn it on, and log into the learning platform. And that's all I'll
Mm.
commit. And as long as you've taken the effort to turn on your laptop, log into the learning platform, click on a video, the video starts playing. Well, then you're like, okay, well, I'll do this for 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden, 10 minutes turns into an hour. You know what I mean? And if it doesn't turn into an hour and it's only 10 minutes, well, it's 10 minutes that you wouldn't have done anyway. So like, it might not be like some of the courses that I've taken are like 90 hours plus. So the percentage of time that 10 minutes makes up is barely noticeable, but it does in fact you further than it would have if you haven't done anything at all. You know what I mean? So I think framing it in the way of just starting as opposed to I'm going to do this is probably a way around that. So as far as like Brian's talking about is like going for a run or something like that, just put on shorts, a t-shirt, your shoes, and go outside, and then just commit to going outside in your shorts, your t-shirt, and in your running sneakers. And then you're like, well, I'm dressed. Maybe I'll just go for like a half a mile. And then all of a sudden a half mile turns into 5 miles. You're like, okay, well that's the I just did that. And that's sort of how I get over the things for work. I'm not sure why it's not hard for me to do the physical stuff. Maybe it's just like the reps that I've put in over the past 13 years or whatever that I've been lifting. But I think it probably goes the same for work. I've just been doing it for a lot less time. That's all.
Whenever you were doing that, Jay, and whenever you were at one of those days where you said just my goal here is to just log in, did you ever have days where you did just log in, or did you always find that you got at least a little bit farther?
I'd say probably the amount of time that I've ever spent once I started up the computer and got logged in and started a video was probably about a half hour. But again, a half hour is a
It's
lot better
something.
than zero.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. I'll send a I'll send an update on if I get outside and if I turn around after I get outside.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like I was saying, I think just start and don't put any heavy expectations on yourself about what you have to do. Just like actually starting is getting over that wall. Once you get over that wall of starting, I think the rest of it becomes pretty easy.
Yeah, that's like the same strategy that like authors use, right? Don't they have the thing where it's like, oh, I just have to write 2 sentences a day, which obviously would take forever to finish a novel, but typically, motivation will strike as you get through those 2 sentences. You end up writing 10 pages. But yeah, it's hard when if you're like, I need to write 10 pages today. It's like, oh God, it's really daunting. So,
Isn't
yeah.
who is it, like J.R.R. Martin, right? Hasn't it taken him like how many years to write the next
Right, Winds of Winter.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably a word a day or even less at this point.
Yeah.
I don't even think he's working on it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I think motivation gets tough when you're rich, right? Like that's another thing, right? So you have to have, and actually, Brian, this kind of goes back to you, right? Like, I think you do have to have some kind of deeper desire than just like tricking yourself constantly, right? So for you, you're saying working out is not a motivator for you right now, but like spending time with your kids, doing good at your job, like fixing your house, like you probably contextualize those things in much bigger packages, right? So it's like you want your kids to be well adjusted and in a loving relationship with you and your wife and all those things. So like you care about that a lot. You care about your house a lot because you want to have a comfortable home where you guys can feel safe and all those things. And then you want to have a job where you're well respected by your colleagues and you have job security they can provide for your family. Like those are big honking things, right? So it makes sense to me that you'd put maybe like, do you care? How much do you care that you have a 6-pack compared to those other things? Probably.
I already got ab hooked.
like,
Like, I mean, why
yeah.
work on it?
This is a funny little aside though. Brian had a 6-pack when he was like 5 years old. Like, it was the craziest thing when we were kids.
I used
The youngest-
I used to just like in my bed whenever I still have trouble falling asleep at night. When I wouldn't be able to fall asleep at night, so I'd just like start randomly doing sit-ups. And I need to start doing that again, apparently.
Yeah, bring it back. Abby's gonna be like, she's gonna hate you.
I'm sure
That's wrong.
like there is absolutely no motivation or like science to that actually working, because you're probably like pumping up your brain and like getting your blood flowing, and like there is no way like doing sit-ups right before you're trying to fall asleep actually help. But
Yeah, I've heard that it's not the right thing for sleep hygiene, but I've been doing it too. So I'm like, yeah, I've been seeing a lot of YouTube. I'd go too far down the rabbit hole there, but like YouTube about like, you know, glucose spikes and like your glycemic index and those type of things, and making sure that like if you're eating things that spike those, like that can have really negative effects on all sorts of things, like converting to fructose and having effects on your mitochondria and Alzheimer's and all sorts of things, right? So now if I do eat some crappy things, later at night, like add dessert or whatever, I try to do some kind of exercise to try to burn and mitigate the effects of that. But yeah, I do think it's bad for your sleep. It's probably why I have major crashes at like 6 p.m. every day. Like every day at 6 p.m., I'm like, I'll go pet the cat and I'll just like fall asleep on the floor. And I don't even know how I got there. I'm just like, what's happening? That happened today, by the way. So yeah, I don't know. But something to keep in mind if you are trying to focus on getting good sleep. Maybe exercising late at night's not the ticket.
so did Stephanie come wake you up off the floor?
No, I'll just like wake up like, oh, like my back hurt. It'll only be for like 10 minutes. It's like super short, but I'll like put the cat, I'll just like fall asleep, and I'll be like, oh, I think I wake up just because it hurts. I was actually there's a step up in our upstairs that's like it's wood, right? And it's like I was like across. I wasn't even like on a flat surface. I just like fell asleep on like this. I'm like woke up all sore. So I don't know. Getting old's weird.
Found that I know this is like really off topic for what we're supposed to be talking about, but I've noticed so I got injured a while ago, so I didn't lift weights for like 3 or 4 months. Um and my sleep improved over that 4 month
Really?
by an insane amount. And then like I just recently started going back very regularly, like in the last 2.5 weeks. And now I'm all of a sudden waking up at like 2 a.m. again and not being able to sleep anymore. And it's crazy because I don't work out at night. I work out early in the morning. So I don't know really what's going on with that. But yeah, I found it interesting because I've had for the past, I don't know, 6 years or so, have had the problem where I wake up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and can't fall back to sleep. So I just go on the couch and do unproductive stuff on my phone for like the 2 hours while I'm waiting for the gym to open. Um,
Yeah.
and that all went away when I stopped lifting weight and I started again and now it's back.
That is the opposite of what I would expect would happen.
Yeah.
That's
me
so. Are
too.
you taking like proteins or supplements or something that else
Yeah,
could be
I took, I
related?
take, I take pre-workout and it's high in caffeine, but at the same time, I'm taking it like right at 4 a.m. So that's, you know, 16 hours before I go to bed.
Think about try cut. Like I would do an elimination type thing. Like I mean, like it seems so weird to me that just like pumping would get you there.
Yeah, I don't know. Weird.
I mean, obviously it makes your workout different and maybe you can't push as hard, but if I were you, I would experiment with it just to see.
I
I
staring
like
at a
that.
That's
wall
terrible,
today.
man. Yeah, stare at a wall. Come on. Works. No, actually, I have terrible sleep. Don't listen to me. I'm still trying to figure out my sleep. I was
Yeah,
up last. Yeah, I was up. Our household, we were both up at like 4, like just I don't know, crazy. I'm not sure what it is, but I think that's why I fall asleep petting the cat. Probably.
When you talk about your bad sleep, I know in the past, you tend to do work, if
Yeah,
you're up, right? Any advice
bad
for
sleep hygiene.
somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah, any advice for somebody like me who wakes up at 2 a.m. and could easily study for 2 hours instead of staring at his phone? How do I get motivated to do that? Because like that's what I
I would
really should be doing.
I would say don't do it. Honestly,
Okay.
I think the stare at the wall technique works here because I so I had like terrible sleep for about 2 years. I had like a couple projects were like very stressful to me, and it was like it was one of the most stressful times of my life, honestly. And I was up and like I'd wake up and like I'd like have panic attacks. It was absolutely terrible. My sleep was off the wall, and I felt like I was gonna die. And now the fact that I don't have that anymore, that my lifestyle is so drastically different, it's like a complete 180. That like I definitely sleep way better. So like adjust your life, or just don't get yourself in those situations. Like, you should be ambitious, but don't bite off like way more than you can chew. And that's what I did. And I just would never recommend that to anybody. It was a horrible experience. Um, so, so yeah, like, first of all, like if you have a major looming stressful thing that could mess with it, like that was the single biggest thing for me. But I would say like those things, like waking up at 2 a.m. and working for 3 hours I mean, that's what I was doing because I was like, I'm waking up, panic attack. I don't like, I don't know what to do with this energy and I'm not sleeping anyway. So I'd go down and work. But I think that stuff is terrible for sleep hygiene. Like really get away from the screens at night. I know we do this
Well,
podcast pretty late here, and then we'll play video games afterwards, Brian. But like that stuff, like that, I think that messes with my sleep schedule for sure. Um,
well, I was
I
gonna
would
say,
avoid
Jim,
it.
it's either that or I stare at Reddit. So I feel like at least like
Yeah.
I should be productive. You know what I mean?
Did you ever I mean, there's people that like obviously like Sam Harris, is that his name? He
Yeah.
comes to mind. Like people like, and there's other like meditation guys, but they talk about like the experience of, I think Naval Ravikant talks about it, but like how painful it is to like sit with your own thoughts at first and sit and think. But like for people who do it and get practice at it, it becomes like as the most exciting play. It's like experiencing the universe, right? It's like exploring this universe of possibilities and things, right? And they say that it's like one of the things they look forward to the most in the day. Like they'll sit for like an hour and just explore their brain. I bet that would be way better for you for sleep than looking at Reddit. Obviously, it seemed
So
like
what
when you're
mushrooms are
not
for, Jim.
practiced. For me, it's like, what's that?
So that's what mushrooms are for, Jim.
Yeah, fair enough. But I mean, so for me, like that, because I'm not practiced at it and I have a lot of stimulus, it's like torture to me. But like, I think if you got good at it, and I've been trying that at night, like I'll go and I'll just like, I'm bored out of my mind and I'll just like sit and like think thoughts and follow the pathways where they go and try not to judge the thoughts. And it's very hard and boring and frustrating and I get distracted and whatever. But I do think if you got good at it, it would probably be a better sleep aid than Reddit would be. Or maybe
Well,
like a paperback or like a book, Jay, like not a backlit one, but like a book that you could just read. That might work too, fantasy especially.
well, the thing is, I'm not falling asleep again once I wake up. That's just not going to happen, right? So that's not what the goal of
Just
this
not,
is.
yeah.
The goal is to sort of like be productive at 2 o'clock in the morning
Uh,
instead of unproductive at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
I guess I
yeah.
just got to stress
You're
myself
having,
out more.
well, I feel like you're having some kind of stress response. Like, what is it that's waking you up at 2? To me, it seems
Just
like
wake up.
that might, yeah. Because I was having that too. And I was looking at some psychology stuff and it seemed like it was a stress response. It's like your body being like kicks in like through some kind of circadian rhythm. It's like, oh, time for action. Like I prime myself that I have a lot of action I need to take, and it just like jolts you awake, but
Maybe
you
I'm
don't
worried about
feel
missing the
stressed.
gym.
Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
It could
Something's
be as
there.
simple as that, honestly. But you
Yeah,
never know.
maybe. Yeah, could you go to the gym like whatever? I'm not gonna change your life. I don't know. Maybe go to the gym later in the day.
No, not with work. Like you
Yeah,
mean something along the lines of like 11 o'clock or something like that. I
like a
mean,
lunch break or something. Yeah, I know you go
yeah,
for
no,
like 2 hours, so I don't know if that would work.
yeah, no, I stay far too long to be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That seems like that would not be fun. Waking up that early for me, that would be torture.
Well, I mean, you remember, I'm like you're the one that used to chat with all the time. Hey, it's up
Yeah,
at 1 o'clock again.
yeah, but for those 2 years, I felt tortured. Like, oh, sorry. Oh, you were chatting when you were because we're opposite times. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
But I was doing the
yeah.
same schedule, and for me, oh man, that was bad times, man. I don't know. I feel for you because that was not fun.
I'm always
Um,
afraid to text you, Jay, because I am afraid of waking you up at 1 o'clock in the
Oh,
morning with text
you never have
messages.
to worry about that. My phone's always on silent. Like nobody can ever reach me, ever,
yeah,
unless I
I
look at my
text you whenever.
phone.
I don't even.
So,
Yeah, I figure like as an adult, like that's your responsibility to like mute your phone so people can't. Yeah, right. Like I don't know. I'm not doing time zone conversions.
all right. Well, did we just
Well,
crush this topic?
I think so. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
more motivated already.
Thank you, everyone, as always, for joining us on Human in the Hard Drive. We'll see you next time.